Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I'm so excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining and making the time to be with us today. Today, we're going to discuss honestly, one of my favorite topics. It's things to consider when launching a product. And I'm really excited because we have a guest speaker that it's Caitlin Blue from Fiorella Soapery. So before we start, I'm going to just give you a brief reminders so we can just be on the same page. So this is a 40-minute webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat box, and we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Don't be shy. We're very open, and we will love to solve all your questions today. And also, the webinar will be recorded for you to watch anytime you like. Also, it is going to be in our YouTube channel. So if you want to go there and subscribe, you're going to have this webinar there as well. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so you guys can see me. I'm so happy to have you all here. Today, we're gonna, as I mentioned, we're gonna talk about all the things that are involved in launching a product. And I'm going to give a brief introduction from our guest speaker, sorry. It's Caitlin Blue. Caitlin Blue is the owner of Fiorella Soapery. I think it's soon to be rebranded to Solette. So, and she started making soap in 2018, and I've seen her journey, and it's amazing. She has grown a lot. Now she sells her soaps to 100 retailers in the US. So I think she's the perfect person to listen to in this specific topic. So I'm not gonna give all the information. Please, Caitlin, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your business.
Thank you so much. You're so sweet. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I always love doing things like this, and I'm glad to talk about this. Your questions are great. So I think we have a ton of stuff to get into today. So hopefully we'll cover it all. But for those of you that don't know, my name's Caitlin Blue. I have been running my business, Fiorella Soapery, for the last 5 years. And yes, I am going through a rebrand. I'm still in the middle of it, so it's not done yet. I don't have a ton to share, but it's definitely been an interesting journey, to say the least. So I would love to just give you my information on my past business, but hopefully once I get through that, we'll have some more info to share on that. But yeah, so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I do have a lot of other social media. I run a YouTube page. So if you guys want to learn more about me and my business, there's a ton more info on that. I won't bore you today with that. So yeah, I think we just get into the questions.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I have my nice cup of warm tea. I usually go to bed in like an hour and a half, so I'm
I know
staying
it's
caffeinated.
sorry. Yeah, I know it's late for you, but thank you
It's
for.
really not late. I'm just an early to bed.
So, I think one of the first things that it comes to launching a new product is thinking about what product to launch and where to find inspiration. So I want to know how to find inspiration to do that.
So it's kind of a big question because inspiration comes from a lot of different places and it's different for each person, which I think is great. That's why we're all in this industry, and we all, not all, I know we have a lot of different industries, but when you look at the soap industry specifically, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people making the same product, soap, and you get a completely different end result when you do that, which I think is a really beautiful thing. So because inspiration can come from everywhere, I will tell you where I like to look, at least, and give you some guidance. A lot of my branding comes from me personally. Actually, I am obsessed with flowers and floral and things like that. So you'll see that woven into my brand a lot. So I take a lot of guidance from my own closet, so to speak. So definitely look at yourself for inspiration. But if you're not into that piece of it, I think that it's always really exciting to go into other retailers and different stores and see, even from a high fashion perspective, all the way down to a mass retailer like a Target, and see what's out there and see what you gravitate towards, and maybe find a void that you could actually fill. Because I think a lot of the times customers are wanting to support small, but sometimes it's hard to do that. And so if you can find inspiration from all these different places and then find a little niche for yourself, I think that's where you can start to see a lot of success because you're doing something different. But my inspiration is a complete blend of my whole life, really, traveling, food, everything. So there's not really one place to look for it, but that's what makes it so unique and beautiful, is that you can pull from so many different places.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something that is hard for us makers, is that sometimes we're just trying to do what we like, and we are just focusing on, but I like this and I know that everyone is gonna like it, but unfortunately that's not gonna happen, right? So as you mentioned, just go and see what's in the market as well, and
Mhm.
just take a little hints of that and make it by your own. I think that's something really important too.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on what you're doing. There are brands that sell a few products and it's not, this massive line, or they sell products surrounding one specific ingredient. So there are definitely ways to create a little niche for yourself that doesn't have to be this whole overarching big massive brand, because I also think that's crazy too when you're trying to be everything to everyone. You almost don't find yourself with a brand voice or message or cohesive look. And so finding that small piece, I know people sometimes get nervous of, oh, am I going too narrow into that niche? But I actually think that in a lot of cases, that's better. It just takes a little while to find those customers that are looking for what you have. But trying to be everything to everybody is also like not the answer.
Yeah, makes sense. And now, for example, you already know the product, you have the product ready to go. Share your process of launching a product. How do you do it?
So a lot of it is, the research piece that we kind of just talked about and figuring out all of those pieces. But I definitely use my platform and social media and my email to really start to hype people up about it. Even now, I'm going through the rebrand and I've been putting little sneak peeks out. I have a few months to go before I relaunch, so I'm not really that close. But if you're a month out from launching your product, I would start to share stuff, get people excited. People absolutely love to be a part of your journey. And I find that using social media, and Instagram is still great. I know there's TikTok is huge for growth, but there's different people on both. And don't abandon your Instagram strategy just because TikTok is the hot new thing. I find actually more engagement with people. And when I announced my rebrand, my Instagram went crazy again because it's something new and exciting. And so people want to hear from you and want to hear about that. So I would just maybe 4 weeks before you actually are launching, start to sneak peek stuff. If you do work with influencers, you may want to give them some product beforehand and have them sneak peek it. So it feels like, little Easter egg kind of thing people found out before your launch. Just get the buzz going. And that has proven to be pretty good for me. If you are building a loyal customer base, they're going to show up for you when you launch a new product. They're going to be so excited and want to support you. So it's that sort of a longer thing of cultivating that customer relationship. And I just happen to do that mostly on my Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, and as you mentioned, I know that probably for other people is Facebook, that is
Mm-hmm.
to be like their main social media.
Yep.
So maybe just do that, but in a different social media will work, right?
Exactly. Wherever your customers are, that's where you should still be. Don't abandon them just because of what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
I think
So
we sometimes take things too seriously and literally when people hear that, and don't forget where your current customers are.
yeah, I know. It's crazy. Social media
It
is crazy.
is.
So now that you already mentioned the process, I know that you mentioned that you do Instagram and a lot of, like, you send some samples to some of your loyal customers, but what other marketing strategies do you do to advertise this new product?
So I briefly mentioned email marketing as well. That has been something that's really great for me because it's a direct line to my customers. Not everyone logs into social media every day or at the time that you post. And the email is something that I don't email people a lot. When I email, it's because of a launch or a sale. So it is an exciting thing. I'm not bogging them down with stuff. So when they get it, they know they should open it because it's something super cool. But email has been really great, and I get all of that through traffic on my website for the most part. But I would also say I haven't done this, but I'm trying to in the future. So I'll share my strategy. I have a lot of wholesale partners, like you mentioned earlier, and I feel like I can utilize them a lot more to spread the word in the marketing and align a little bit better with launching that product in tandem with my wholesalers and sort of making it that community effort, right? And like everybody launches on the same day, and then they're all talking about it on their social media as well. So even if someone is not going to go to that retailer store necessarily, they may see it on their Instagram and head over to me and then buy it on launch day. I think that that's my big thing in this world where social media is so big and it's like getting overwhelming, and it is about community. And if you can bring in your wholesale partners, and even if it's not all of your wholesale partners, but you have a few that you're really close with, you can have them all, together and try and talk about that as well.
Yeah, kind of like a partnership, right? With
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I know a lot of people get nervous about wholesale because of the profits, but they're doing the selling for you, and it is more of a partnership. So if you can give your retailers something like that and have them almost get this great launch day buzz going, it's great for their business too. And ultimately, you're all selling more. So
yeah, it's
that's like
a
a win
win-win.
for everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So I know that we have been discussing like the good things, but I know that there are some challenges that comes with the launching a product. So with your experience, what challenges have you had?
So this one I had to think about for a little bit. I think the biggest thing for me is education. So if you're launching a product that customers aren't really familiar with, so like if you launch a sugar scrub, most people know how to use a sugar scrub. They've used one before. There's not going to be that barrier to buying it because they know what it is. I had launched body oils last year, so I'll use that as an example. And a lot of people know what they are, but I was very surprised to find a lot of people didn't know what they were. And there was a lot of education around what it was used for, how to use it, a lot more than I was normally used to. And so because of that, I don't think I sold as much as I was anticipating in the beginning because I had to do more of that explanation. So that's one thing I would think about, especially if you're doing a product that's different that customers don't know. And I didn't even think body oil was that different, but there's a large group of people that just didn't know about it. And I found that out because I finally went on to my social media and said, hey, have you used a body oil before? And I got these results where it was like 78% said no. And that's when it started to click with me that I didn't give my customers enough information to make that purchase. And there was probably a lot of like, oil, that's weird. Do I really want to put that on my body? And that seems really greasy. And so I really had to adjust the way I was marketing that product because my customers needed more information from me.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I know that also with that, being just in the e-commerce like universe, for example, I can imagine like describing the scent of
Mm-hmm.
a soap or something or a candle. It can be hard for you too, like just to communicate that scent just by seeing a picture. It's also a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably in my world one of the most difficult things to do because at least in photos you can show texture, and you could even do a video where you could show the product and opening it and the customer gets a much better feel for it. But no matter what you do, they will never understand what that scent actually is until they smell it. So one thing that's helped me with that, which I would suggest to a lot of people, is making sure customers can leave reviews on your products, because I think the more positive 5-star reviews and comments that people put on those products give a customer more knowledge around it, and they can read what other people are saying. And sometimes people give descriptions, but even if someone is raving and saying, XYZ scent is my favorite, I can't stop smelling it, that validation from a customer, not from me, is really powerful. So
Yeah.
I think that helps if you're running an online business.
Yeah, I love that. And then how often do you recommend doing a product launch?
So I was getting into the habit of doing them quarterly, and most of that would be from a scent perspective. So I was launching seasonal scents, but I think it's different if you're launching a brand new product that you're not just adding a new scent to. I wouldn't go crazy. And the reason I say that is because it can get really expensive if you're trying to launch a new product and you're buying all different ingredients and then you're taking time out of your day to manufacture and make it. And if you're trying to distribute it to wholesalers, that can get a little tricky. So I feel like I personally look at launching new products is like 2 times a year, maybe, but that's also on top of every quarter launching some new fragrances. So I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks, but you don't want to get into the habit of doing too much and throwing too much at customers, because I think then they get a little overwhelmed. The only time I think it might work is if you're doing I know a lot of like clothing boutiques will do weekly new arrivals, and that's a little bit different because they're not going through the same, and it's very seasonal heavy in apparel, so they have to move that product quickly. So I don't want to make a blanket statement and say like, no, only do it 6 times a year. But I think you have to look at your business and how your customers shop too. And also the downtimes, because if holiday, obviously people are going to be buying a lot more during holiday, but in a January, February time period, might not be the best time to launch something. So that might be a bigger break. So yeah, I would just say.
Yeah, and also how like your capabilities as well, right? To not just get rid of all the things that are happening and just focusing on a new launch that can also hurt your business too.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the launches are great because people do want something new. I have been in a situation this year where I haven't really done a lot of new launches because I'm transitioning out of a brand. And I notice people get bored. So you still need that new product to keep your current customers excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just don't want to overwhelm them or overwhelm yourself.
Yeah. So now I think this one is a question that me personally always have like a big question for me, because you don't know how to prepare for like inventory wise when you launch a product. It's even if you do it like it's your third time doing it, for me it was like, I'm not sure if how many I have to have in stock, or should I make them to order, or what's your experience with that?
So, my background, I was a retail buyer for a really large apparel chain for 12 years. So, I basically was a buyer and doing the same thing. You're kind of a buyer for your brand, and I was never right. So, you're either going to have too much or too little whenever you buy something or do something. That's just the nature of that kind of job. And so, I would do the best you can to figure out what that number should be. And the way I do that is look at past sales. So the last few launches I've had, what did I sell on the first week or two, so I can make sure I'm not scrambling. And then you can look at your current trends and see, okay, well, am I growing a lot on social media? Is that adding to it? But I always err on the side of being more conservative than doing too much, because if for some reason it doesn't work out for you, you don't want to invest a ton of money in products. And luckily for my industry, there's a pretty good shelf life for soap and bath products. So you're not going to abandon it in 2 weeks, but you don't want to have too much product taking up, and you've invested your money. You want to get it back as fast as possible so you can, keep putting it into the places that are working really well. Yeah, it's a tough one because you're never going to be right. That's why I leaned on that experience that I had in the past, because I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, whether we made too much or not enough. But that's pretty much you're never going to hit it right on the head. You're never going to be perfect and say, oh, I sold everything. Because if you sold out, you're like, oh, I could have sold more.
Yeah.
So it's just the nature of it. You just kind of have to deal with it. And luckily, if you work in an environment where you can turn things around very quickly, maybe you just know, okay, I'm going to keep my schedule light for the 2 weeks after the launch. And if I need to make product, I have the time to do that so that I'm not stressing out about it.
Okay, so I know we have been mentioning like the benefits of doing a launching a product, but I don't know, do you have any other benefits of doing a new product launch, sorry.
I mean, I think it's just keeping people interested and excited. I do have people that love certain scents and they'll stick with that and they won't venture off into something new. It's just it's what they're used to, it's their habit. And so you still need to keep evolving, because I mean, that's what everyone's doing, right? Every retailer's evolving. You're never really seeing in retailers the same product year over year over year. And so I always look at my fragrances and evaluate, and I pretty much say like, okay, who are the bottom 2 fragrances this past spring? Like, you're done. We're not going to carry you anymore. And I'm sorry to the people that love that scent. Someone's going to be mad. They're going to email you and be like, no, that was my favorite. It's just going to happen. But from a business perspective, you just can't keep everything. So I always would say just keep doing new stuff. I think the other thing too is everything's a trend no matter what. Even within soap, yes, we all use soap almost every day, hopefully. And there's different trends, right? There's trends within it. There's color trends, there's fashion trends, there's fragrance trends, there's so much. And we're all making soap. And if you want to stay relevant and keep moving your business forward, you have to try new things. It doesn't mean you have to have this huge, massive product launch, but testing things too and figuring out your customers might move into something newer. So for instance, with the body oil, I have had a lot of people who didn't buy my body butter anymore because they tried the body oil and they loved it and felt like it was more of for their skin type. And so now they've completely converted over to that. And if I hadn't done that and I just had body butter, I might have lost that sale to that customer because they just maybe found somebody else's body butter. So luckily for most of us being handmade, the biggest benefit compared to a bigger retailer or a bigger brand is that we can do things really, really quickly. So if there is a trend going on in your industry, whether it's jewelry or food or soap, you can probably whip something up in a couple of weeks and get a couple units out there to your customers and test it and see, is this really going to be something I should be making more of? So I think that is the beautiful thing for us, is that we can pivot so much faster, whereas large companies need to plan things 1, 2, 3 years in advance. And they can't just do something at the drop of a hat. So
Yeah.
I think that's the piece, is like you can almost be more relevant than some of the bigger brands.
Yeah, that's something really positive about being small. I think you have the chance to do that and it can go really well.
Yeah. And you know what? If it doesn't go well, because we're small, you didn't invest a ton of money in it and you didn't, spend a lot of time on it. You tried it and then you moved on to something else. So I think that it goes on both sides.
Yeah. And then we know that you mentioned some of the marketing strategies that probably are good to try, but what happens if a marketing strategy doesn't work? How do you pivot on what to do?
So like I said before, I ask my customers, like, okay, I got to figure out like what's going on. And I would say that would be my biggest thing. And it's kind of in everything. I'm very analytical. I love to figure things out. So if there's a problem or something didn't go the way I planned, I'm like uncovering every rock, trying to figure out why. So was it me? Was it the way I marketed it? Was it the way it was made? Maybe people didn't like it, maybe they just didn't love it. So I would just start asking yourself those questions as to why, because that's going to then help you in your next product launch. If you figure out what it was. So for instance, my body oils, I knew it was an education thing. The product was great because everyone that got it loved it, but I wasn't getting enough people to purchase. So the issue was the education piece. And I only got there because I asked my customers more information and talked to a couple people, and I had some people try it. And so I just started gathering information to make a better choice about it. So just, yeah, be an investigator, figure out why, especially before you drop it. I know that's kind of jumping around, but like some of the most common mistakes, which I'm sorry, I'm going ahead, but it is that you drop something too quickly. I think a lot of the times we're like, oh, I didn't sell out on launch day, so they don't want it, move on. But in some cases, you might be early to a trend, or in my case, you just needed to educate your customers more. So if you figure that out, your sales might slowly start to go up over time if you're figuring out what it is instead of just saying like, oh no, they don't want that product.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I think now that you already covered like the common mistakes, I think the only thing that I want to ask you is your best advice for handmade business owners or any final thoughts that you have.
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like I could use some advice every once in a while. I
I
think
know
that's
we
it. I think
always.
that's it. It's like just know you're going to have these crazy highs and these crazy lows, and it doesn't ever stop because as you get bigger, which and it's exciting, but as you get bigger, they still exist. And then the crazy highs are even bigger and the lows are even bigger and the decisions you have to make are crazy. So I would say the biggest advice is to just be really proud of yourself for whatever stage you're in, because you could be looking at somebody, and I get a lot of people say like, oh, you're so inspirational. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that's so nice. But like, I feel like I'm still so small and I have so much to do and so much to conquer. And so you're always going to have someone who's ahead of you. And it's great to have them to be inspiring to you, but don't let that make you feel like you're not where you should be, because I constantly look back. I was in my garage the other day, which is where I started making all of my product. And now it's just a simple garage. It's like there's just basic. And I had to stop and I looked and I finally like had a moment with myself to say like, Caitlin, you did this. You moved out of this garage. And it might be really scary still, but I like took a moment and I was proud for myself. And I think if people can continue to do that, you're going to get through those lows. And definitely celebrate the wins. I always tell people to celebrate them, no matter how big or small they are. If you open a wholesale account, go celebrate however you like to, whether that's champagne, a dinner out, whatever, a bubble bath, a cup of coffee, whatever it is, whatever makes you happy, give yourself those rewards, because like you're doing something amazing. There are a lot of people that don't have the strength to start a business. So if you've started or you're just starting out, you have so much more strength than a lot of people. And yeah, I think that's something that you should just be really proud of.
Yeah, I love that. So I think we are gonna leave the space for you guys that are joining us today to ask some questions. You can drop them in the chat box, and I know that Caitlin will be more than happy to answer them. So don't be shy, please ask anything you want. I'm gonna give a couple of minutes. Or if you want to unmute your mic, you can also do that. Yeah, it says, how do you feel about pitch package for wholesalers?
Okay. So I know there's this like wholesale course going around. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I'm taking it because I was very curious about it. And in it, she says pitch packages for wholesalers. So
Oh,
I think it's a great idea. I just think now that that class is so viral that everyone's going to be doing it. So I am sort of like, oh, this is a great information, but everyone's just going to start sending stuff. And so I think we just have to be a little strategic about it. So what I love is building that relationship before you do it. I definitely think sending something to I would say focus on some of the smaller retailers, because I think what's going to happen in this course is that people are going to go and look for the boutiques and retail stores that have massive followings, and they're going to be inundated with merchandise. I would start local and I would look at your area and see where you can start to expand. My best retailers are the ones that are the closest to me. And maybe part of that is because I'm local. And I think people love buying things that are local. And I know the owners of the stores, so they're pushing my products. But if you're not in wholesale yet, I say start local and start building that. And by all means, if you have the financial ability to send a pitch package to somebody, do it. They're going to love it. That they don't get them. So I think that that's something very exciting, and it is a guaranteed way to get the product into their hands. But I would do a little bit of research beforehand and, make sure you follow them on social media and figure out if your product really is a good fit for them. So yeah, I mean, I have sent some before and it's been good, but I have also sent products to people who've asked for samples and then they just say, oh no, my customers didn't like it. So it's not this like beautiful thing of like, oh, I'm just going to send product and everyone's going to love it. And then I'm going to get all these orders and it's going to be amazing. There's going to be a lot of people that don't place orders with you. So I think the more strategic you can be with who you're selecting to send them to, is going to be more beneficial for you. I think that answers your question.
Oh, she says, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, you're
Oh,
so
so
sweet,
nice.
Jennifer. Thank you.
So
Sometimes I need to hear that because, like, I'm on the bathroom floor every once in a while. I just like, I'm
that's
crying.
normal. That happens. I
It
get
does. My
it.
husband's like, I'm just making sure you're okay. I was like, I'm fine. Just come check on me in an hour. I'll be okay.
I don't know if anyone else has a question. I think we have a couple of minutes still.
I just want to say thank you guys for creating such an awesome platform and continuing to add new features to it. I definitely have been a part of some different businesses and different platforms and apps, and you just sort of get what you get and they don't continue to evolve.
Yeah.
So I feel like every time I log into my Inventora, there's like a little new discovery. And it's really great. So
Yeah, thank
thank you.
you. Thank you so much for that. Well, I think we are done. Nobody else asks any questions, but thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Caitlin. Your information was super helpful. And we are going to be uploading this webinar to our YouTube channel, and you're also going to receive the replay in your emails. So in a couple of minutes, I guess. So yeah, I thank you so much for joining and have a great end of your day.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.